Hi everyone, welcome to another video. Today we are celebrating the 4th birthday of Joy ClairStamps. Now I have been on the Joy ClairStamps design team for going on 2 years now. It has been so much fun, but today we are celebrating the 4th anniversary of Joy ClairStamps with a huge block hop full of designers from the past and designers that are on the design team right now. Now we are all sharing what we love, particularly about Joy ClairStamps. And while I'm telling you this, I thought I would scroll through some of my past projects of Joy Clair. I had so many of them, so many I loved, so I just kind of threw them all into this compilation while I'm telling you what I personally love about the stamps before I get into the actual card today. So if you don't know, Joy ClairStamps sells clear, high-quality photopolymer stamp sets. They have 2 sizes, 4x6 and 6x8. They have some great backgrounds that are clear. They also have custom stamps that you can get in their shop as well. They're really great prices. They're made in the USA. And also, there are 2 different lines in Joy Clair. You've got your everyday line, which I love. Really great images and sentiments to work with, but there's also the Color by Faith line, which is more geared toward faith related things, so like Bible journaling I do with these, and then also I create some more faith-based cards. And personally, what I love about Joy Clair is a lot of their uplifting and encouraging sentiments and stamp sets. So as I was going through all of my stamp sets, and I have a ton of them, and I was trying to pick out my favorite, I found that the ones I was really drawn towards were the ones that were more uplifting. So I actually decided to use 2 sets that I haven't used yet. So these are brand new. They were just released a few months ago, or maybe it was last month. Time flies, and I'm going through back to school right now, so time is really going by me. But I wanted to use these 2 new sets. Not only do they represent the uplifting and encouraging thing I love about Joy Clair, but also the simplicity that you can get with these stamps. They really fit into my clean and simple style. You can dress them up if that is more your thing, but I really love to go with this clean and simple look. So that's what I'm going to do today, is create a very clean and simple card with a very uplifting sentiment and message inside as well. All right. There's a look at the card we're going to be creating today. I decorated not only the inside, but the outside as well. Actually, back that up. I decorated not only the outside, but the inside as well. And I'm using these 2 stamp sets. The one on the right is called Doodle Lines. The one on the left is called You Got This. Now, the Doodle Lines is more of a set you want to pair with something else, and so is the You Got This stamp set. So I thought I'll pair them together. Now, I love this sentiment set. It is everything that you want it to be. It's got so many great sayings in it. And then this Doodle Lines, so much you can do with it. I'm going to share a few things today. So I am starting off with a piece of white cardstock. This measures 3 by 5.5 inches. And I'm going to stamp on it. I'm using my Mini Misty, but you could by all means use just a regular acrylic block. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the Everything's Gonna Be Alright sentiment. Now, I am using the creative corners to make sure this is nice and straight. These really, the one I'm using now doesn't fit in the Mini Misty, but if you press down a little bit, you can get it to work with it. So that's what I'm using right there to kind of get that straight edge, make sure everything's nice and lined up and straight as I'm stamping. And I went ahead and picked that up with the lid of my Misty. I'm going to stamp that sentiment with some Rich Cocoa Memento ink. This is one of their little dewdrop pads, and I'm just going to stamp that down. I am using my Misty, so I'll be stamping a couple times just to make sure that I get it really nice and dark and to where you can read it really well, and it kind of fills in the whole sentiment. Next, I'm going to add some of those doodle lines underneath and on top. So the first thing I want to do is line it up underneath. I went ahead and centered that, make sure it was okay. I'm going to look through the lid of my Misty what that grid is, and then I can see if it's nice and straight, if it lines up with one of those lines. I'm going to use some shea butter ink from Catherine Pooler. I'll go ahead and get that on my stamp and stamp that right down. This is a nice kind of warmer yellow tone. It looks a little bright, but in real life it's a little bit more dark. Now to get that even with the sentiment on the top, all I'm going to do is flip over my paper into my MISTI and then ink up that stamp and stamp it right down. That way it's the same length on both sides of my sentiment. It's the same width from my bottom and top of my paper. It works out really well just to do it that way. There, I've got my little sentiment panel all ready to go. I'm going to add a little bit of a background to my card before I actually put on my sentiment panel. This stamp is from that same Doodle Line stamp set. There is a lot you can do with this stamp set. I am using this little vine image with that same Rich Cocoa Memento ink that I used for the sentiment, and I'm going to stamp a background very quickly. This works out great to create some really quick backgrounds. You could fill this up. I'm going to do different lengths of it here just to make it a little more interesting, and just continue stamping this all the way across the card base. I am stamping on an A2 white top folding card base. I'm going to be using it horizontally. So if you wanted to, if this isn't your cup of tea to do it this way, you could always make this a side folding card base and just use it horizontally as well. That way it stands up a little bit better. I just like the look of these, so that's what I'm using. I'm just quickly stamping the rest of this out, making sure that I'm not really going I didn't have any design in my head. I just kind of stamped where I thought it looked the best and filled in all these white spaces. And once I had that done, it was time to start putting the front together. So with that sentiment panel, I'm going to add a little bit of a yellow cardstock that matched that Catherine Pooler ink on the front, that shea butter ink. You could always use a brown or a craft if you don't have a color that matches your ink. That's a really great way to get around that. But this gives it a little break from that background, kind of cuts up that white, all that white that's going on. Now I stuck this down and it wasn't working. I didn't get it lined up properly. So here's a little tip. If you get that stuck down and you can't get it up, use a spatula. I have this metal one that actually goes with the Cricut, and I just run that underneath and that lifts up the adhesive. And then you can just lift up your panel and place it right back down. That's a great way if you get it stuck by accident and you don't have it lined up properly. Just run that spatula underneath and then you can go ahead and get it up and put it right back down where it belongs. Now another great thing that I love about Joy Clair is their stamps work really well for decorating the outside and the inside. So I'm going to use the same stamp sets, the Doodle Lines and the You Got This set, and I'm going to decorate the inside as well. I'm using the same products. I use the Just Breathe stamp and I use the Rich Cocoa Memento ink, and then I'm using that same shea butter ink and a Doodle Lines little, I don't even know what you would call these. They're not a parenthesis, but they kind of look like one. They've got little frillies on them, so I went ahead and stamped that on the top and bottom of the Just Breathe to really frame out that sentiment on the inside. Now the same little guy vine I used on the outside to decorate the background, I'm going to stamp on the bottom of this card with that Rich Cocoa ink, the brown dye ink. And I am going to space this out a little bit because I'm going to come in with another little image here. This has little dots and a line in it, and I'll go ahead and stamp that in between each one to really give it another added little flair there. I'll stamp that on the inside, and then once that's done, this card is pretty much good to go, except I decided to add a little bit of brown enamel accents right on those little dots on the Doodle Lines that I used on the top and bottom of the sentiment. This just kind of helps add that little last punch, I guess, if you will, on the front, and then it looks much better having that little break with all that yellow. And these enamel accents that I used aren't available anymore, but I'll leave Brown Nouveau drops in the link down below. Now today is a very special day. It is the 4th birthday of Joy ClairStamps, and like I said, there is a blog hop going on. So go to that link down below. But today, If you want to order any Joy ClairStamps, today is the day to do it. I will leave a link down in the description box. There's 30% off the whole store from the 23rd to the 31st of August. Use the code BDAY. It's actually BDAY/30. I will leave that down in the description box below as well. There are going to be links on the left side of your screen that you can click on, as well as the subscribe button. Thanks for watching and happy crafting.